You're staring at spreadsheets on your laptop, caffeine running low and your thoughts running high, balancing numbers that barely matter. You work in finance, middle management, predictable, sterile, but you like control, like seeing patterns others can't. Your life is ordinary. Paychecks, bills, commuting, and small frustrations. You reconcile accounts, approve transactions, make sure every decimal aligns. You think this is enough until the knock on your office door changes everything. 3 men in tailored suits enter, calm but deliberate. No introductions, no explanations. One of them places a folder in front of you and slides it across the desk. Inside are wire transfers, offshore accounts, international shell corporations, and instructions that defy legality, but fit perfectly into your skill set. You run this, one says. Every transaction, every flow. One mistake, people die. One hesitation, we lose billions. You're either in or out. It's not a request, it's a pivot point you can't refuse. You examine the accounts, you see the patterns, the scale, the magnitude. Millions in movement. Every currency, every port, every distributor connected in a delicate lattice of risk and profit. The responsibility is intoxicating. One call, one oversight, and an entire network collapses. You know in that moment your life is about to change. You sign. You are in. The first days are trial by fire. You reconcile shipments to payments, verify routes, and ensure accounts align with realities you've never witnessed before. Money is not just numbers now, it's power, leverage, influence, and threat. You see the first test. A shipment fails to clear customs in Rotterdam. You are told it's your fault. Your calculations missed a regulatory change. Panic rises, but fear sharpens clarity. You reroute, rerun accounts, manipulate paperwork. The shipment arrives eventually, but the lesson is clear. Delay equals death. You begin mapping the global operation in your mind. Labs, ports, distribution hubs, money laundering nodes, shell companies, and bribed officials. Every decision you make touches thousands of lives. One delayed transfer could bankrupt a region. One miscalculated currency swap could expose a cell. One ignored red flag could invite assassination. You feel the weight pressing down, but also the thrill. You control the flow of a vast underworld economy. You are no longer a cog in a machine. You are the machine. Months pass. Your control expands. You negotiate with banks and front companies, ensuring transfers evade scrutiny. You watch as rival factions test boundaries. One attempt at interception fails because of your foresight. You've anticipated law enforcement scrutiny, economic fluctuations, political instability, and human error. You reroute funds before anyone notices, manipulate trade records, and silently eliminate vulnerabilities. Every decision is both a calculation and a moral gamble. You are untouchable, and yet always exposed. The psychological toll is immediate. You start seeing people as variables, not humans. Couriers, distributors, accountants. They are nodes in your network, not people. Yet occasionally a face lingers. The young intern who worked late, the accountant whose family relies on her salary. You lie awake wondering if survival requires more than detachment. Every ethical boundary you cross becomes routine. Every compromise erodes who you were. You try to justify it. This is business. This is survival. This is control. But the reflection is inevitable. You expand operations across continents. You are now responsible for managing flows in North America, Europe, and Asia. You oversee millions in cash movement weekly, billions yearly, and every dollar is a decision point. One erroneous calculation could expose a shipment to seizure or an ally to betrayal. You implement redundancies, encrypted communications, and contingency networks. You manipulate currency markets subtly, hedge against law enforcement actions, and monitor political shifts. You begin to think not in weeks, but in fiscal cycles and geopolitical trends. Your influence is tested when a rival organization attempts to infiltrate your accounts. They've planted falsified wire transfers and fake invoices. You detect the anomaly instantly. Every nerve in your body fires. One misstep and your empire collapses. You respond with countermeasures. Freeze accounts, reroute funds, leak false intelligence to the rival. By the time they realize the trap, they have already compromised themselves. The thrill of control is matched only by the omnipresent fear of exposure. You've become the years of this work teach you patience and ruthlessness. You oversee hundreds of transactions simultaneously, manipulating flows so precisely that your fingerprints are invisible. Yet you know your life is a series of calculated risks. One whistleblower, one rogue employee, one oversight, and the consequences cascade. You develop contingency protocols, dummy accounts, alternate banking networks, and layered encryption that even your closest collaborators can't fully decipher. You trust no one fully, not even yourself. The complexity increases when governments start probing. An international task force investigates suspicious activity. Your team provides cover: shell companies, charitable donations, misclassified goods. You calculate probabilities, exploit loopholes, and reroute transactions to avoid scrutiny. Each success strengthens your dominance. Each minor failure teaches you a new layer of vigilance. The global drug trade is a living organism, and you are its central nervous system. Your hands move unseen, directing flows, mitigating risks, and controlling outcomes. You face moral dilemmas constantly. One distributor in South America begs for leniency, citing family hardship. You consider an exception but recognize the ripple effect. Weakness invites betrayal. The transaction is executed flawlessly, and the distributor disappears under the radar, a warning to others. Your rational mind says this is necessary. Your conscience whispers questions you cannot answer. You reconcile by focusing on numbers, on patterns, on outcomes. Humans are predictable variables when viewed through the lens of transactions. As your empire grows, so do the stakes. You are responsible for billions in drug revenue annually. Shipments cross oceans, traverse deserts, move through air cargo. Your decisions dictate routes, volumes, and timing. Law enforcement pressure intensifies. One night, a shipment is intercepted in Southeast Asia. You analyze the failure, tracing it to a corrupt official who has begun selling secrets. You neutralize the threat by cutting him out of the network and redirecting his contacts. Your empire adapts. Every challenge is the psychological toll intensifies. You begin dreaming in transactions, inflows, outflows, currency exchanges, encryption keys, falsified invoices. Even in sleep, your mind calculates risks and patterns. You realize that the human element is the only unpredictable factor, and it is often the deadliest. You implement strict protocols, vet every employee, monitor communications constantly. The line between work and existence dissolves. You live in a world defined by numbers, risk, and control. You are now recognized globally as the operator behind every major transaction in the trade. Governments, rival cartels, and financial institutions are all subtly influenced by your decisions. You can manipulate markets, destabilize regions, and protect your allies with a single transaction. You are a ghost, unseen but omnipresent. A single call can move millions, reroute shipments, or collapse operations across continents. Power is absolute yet fragile, and you balance it daily. Every decision has moral and strategic consequences. You authorize a transfer to a front company disguised as a medical supplier, knowing the revenue will fund violent operations, yet prevent exposure for your own employees. You reroute millions to avoid seizure, calculating which jurisdictions will allow survival. Your mind works like a supercomputer, analyzing risk, reward, and ethical compromise simultaneously. You realize that absolute control comes at the cost of personal detachment, of isolation, and of constant vigilance. You begin mentoring a small team, teaching them the art of transaction manipulation, international finance, and covert influence. You recognize that succession planning is necessary. One day you may falter, and the empire must endure. Each member is tested rigorously: loyalty, intelligence, discretion. Failures are not tolerated, mistakes are fatal, sometimes immediately. You become a teacher, a strategist, a psychologist, and an enforcer. A major crisis tests you like never before. A coalition of rival cartels coordinates attacks on multiple shipments simultaneously. Money is being intercepted, couriers are disappearing, and law enforcement attention peaks in several countries at once. You calculate probabilities, reroute cash flows, bribe critical officials, and manipulate rivals against each other. Over 72 hours, billions in revenue are secured, and the coalition collapses. Your dominance is cemented, but the threat level is unprecedented. You recognize that even mastery cannot guarantee safety. You reflect on the journey. Once you reconciled office spreadsheets, concerned with petty numbers. Now, you direct billions, control entire supply chains, manipulate governments, and influence markets globally. The transformation is staggering. Ethical boundaries are replaced by strategic necessity. Relationships are tools. Fear is a constant companion. You see the cost: loneliness, moral compromise, and perpetual tension. Yet the allure of control, the intoxicating sense that you shape events unseen, is impossible to relinquish. Even now, sitting in front of your monitors, scanning encrypted feeds, monitoring shipments, currencies, and allies, you understand the game never ends. Each decision is permanent, each transaction a potential threat or triumph. You are the unseen operator of a global empire, controlling flows invisible to the world, and yet fully accountable for every consequence. You continue, because in this world, stopping means collapse, and every heartbeat is a calculation, every choice a test, and every second a gamble.